These movies right here invoke the Christian god, his/her variations, and a smattering of other deities big and small, all willing to stick their oar in whether it's wanted or not. Spanning comedy, drama, horror, and everything else in between. It seems no genre is safe from divine intervention, but it's not always for the best. These 10 films take the concept of the Deus Ex Machina to a whole new level. And no people, we are not counting the Marvel gods. This list will be thorless. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 movies where God intervenes. Number 10, Constantine. Despite the original not having been all that well received, thanks to some major divergences from the Hellblazer comic book source material, rumours of a sequel to Francis Lawrence's Constantine abound. But whether this will come to fruition is anyone's guess. What we do know is that for everything it failed in, Constantine made up in equal measure. Sure, Keanu Reeves' moody anti-hero John Constantine spends much of the movie moping and trying not to smoke or crack wise, but it all leads up to a mega final showdown, in which the androgynous angel Gabriel unleashes their master plan to enact their revenge against mankind. God participates in the final battle at a heck of a distance, but the big guy upstairs' presence is very much felt when Gabriel discovers their divine protection has been rescinded. This means that when Constantine summons Lucifer by slitting his own wrists, as you do, Gabriel cannot smite the unholy one, and suffers the dire consequences of having their wings burned off and made mortal, allowing Constantine to literally box their nose. Number 9, Left Behind. Nicolas Cage has crept back into everyone's favours over the last 7 years or so, starring in indie hit after indie hit and becoming something of a horror darling. But that does not mean that we've forgotten the stream of god-awful thrillers that he put out during the early 2010s. And Left Behind is one of the worst offenders, people. Far from keeping God hidden in dark corners and behind strangers' smiles, Left Behind puts the Almighty up front from the get-go. Indeed, God's long-foretold biblical rapture strikes during the film's first act, causing personal, national, and global-scale devastation for pretty much everyone on Earth, but a special kind of devastation for those in the air. One such aerial devastatee is commercial airline pilot Ray Steele, who finds himself on the naughty list when many of his crew and passengers suddenly check out mid-flight, leaving him behind. Left with heaps of empty clothes on the inside, rogue pilotless planes on the outside, and basically zero support from down below, this is one intervention pretty much everyone not on the VIP list to heaven wishes never happened. Number 8, The Green Mile. If the 90s proved anything, it's that Stephen King doesn't just do horror. Indeed, he was the original creative source behind a number of decidedly non-spooky hits across the decade. Foremost of these is The Shawshank Redemption, of course, but snapping closely at its heels is the also Frank Darabont directed, Tom Hanks starring The Green Mile, a tale of redemption on death row in 1930s USA. The film sees Hanks inhabit the role of corrections officer Paul Edgecombe, a humble and moral man of the law, playing opposite Michael Clarke Duncan's John Coffey, an inmate who has been sentenced to death for a crime he didn't commit. Once Coffey's gentle nature is established, the miracles come thick and fast, as the big imposing hulk of a man works his delicate touch to save the lives and souls of those around him. Far from an average do-gooder, Coffey is established as a conduit for God himself. A modern-ish day Jesus Christ, he's misunderstood, persecuted, and eventually dies for someone else's sins. Number 7, Valhalla Rising. The movie features Mads Mikkelsen as One-Eye, a 12th century Norse warrior who travels from Sutherland with a band of Christian Norsemen in an attempt to locate the fabled Holy Land. What the gang find instead is an unidentified world of pain, where brutality and misery reign. Nevertheless, One-Eye is granted visions and strength by his gods, allowing him to break away from the Christians and repeatedly avoid certain death. But it's not a Nicholas Winding Refn film if the hero doesn't either end up in a precarious predicament or dead. And for Valhalla Rising, it's the latter. Like the great Obi-Wan, One-Eye allows himself to be struck down so that he can become more powerful than we could possibly ever imagine. Treated to a spot of ascension by his Norse gods, in recognition of his strife and efforts, the Cyclopean hero gets what he's due in the end. Good for him. Number 6, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones' first adventure, Raiders of the Lost Ark, established the template for many of Steven Spielberg's Spielberg's movies to come, proved that George Lucas could still work his magic back on Earth, and helped Harrison Ford avoid the kind of typecasting that banished Mark Hamill to voice acting for several decades. Starring as the intrepid archaeologist himself, Ford put his gruff and ready stamp on a character cut from the Alan Quatermain cloth, touring around the globe in a race against the Nazis to locate the titular biblical ark. Locate it they do, and against better advice, the SS perform the ritual and open the ark. Once the lid has been cracked, all the sinners, those being the Nazis present, are rightfully smited. Should that be smote? Smitten? I don't know, by God's almighty wrath, with only Indy and his companion Marion Ravenwood escaping with their lives. Number 5. Jason and the Argonauts. Recognized and remembered today as one of the very first films to successfully blend live-action footage with stop-motion animation, Don Chaffee and Ray Harryhausen's epic fantasy adventure Jason and the Argonauts brought mythology and the gods to life in a way never before seen on screen. Jason, son of the late King Aristo, embarks on a quest for the Golden Fleece in order to shore up support against the tyrant Peleus and avenge his father. Rather than merely invoke the names of the deities or call on them for a bit of additional protection, Jason goes straight to the source, winding up at Mount Olympus where he meets pretty much everyone who's anyone in the world of Greek gods. Hera, god of marriage, women, and family, opts to proffer her help to Jason on his quest, as Peleus profaned her temple by murdering one of Jason's sisters in it. How rude. Though she intervenes a whopping 5 times, guiding the young hero like her own private video game, as he faces giants, Hydra, and, clashing rocks. Number 4. Dogma. Born and bred Catholic, Kevin Smith kicked up a stink in the US religious community when he rounded up Jay and Silent Bob and released the blasphemous, their words, send-up of everything Christianity holds dear, Dogma. The film follows Bartleby and Loki, 2 angels who have been sentenced to an immortal life on Earth amongst the humans, and who want nothing more than to get back to heaven. Lucky for them, an overzealous priest, played rather appropriately by George Carlin, has unwittingly created something of a loophole that will allow them to do just that. But it may also mean the end of existence as we know it. With God holed up in a hospital room for most of the movie, it's a long story, things seem pretty dire until a last-minute intervention turns the tables. It turns out Alanis Morissette is the, big guy or gal upstairs. She swoops in to save the day at the 11th hour, and when she opens her mouth, you'd better pray you're not a sinner. Number 3. Bruce Almighty. Not shy about showing its metaphysical cards from the start, God, or Morgan Freeman to his fans, turns up in the first act of Bruce Almighty when Bruce calls him out for not doing his job. Turns out God is a man in a suit with an endless filing cabinet, and he keeps tabs on everything we do while having a little fun along the way. God gives Bruce his own supernatural powers to right a few wrongs in his own life, letting the little man see what he has been missing and try to prove he can make a better job of it along the way. But while this intervention is designed to teach Bruce a lesson, God is just lucky he doesn't condemn all of humanity in the process. Like any regular human, Bruce leads with self-interest, warping the world to suit his whims while neglecting his godly duties. Like, listening and responding to humanity's prayers. Tut tut tut. This all blows up in his face, of course, as epic mismanagement of his flock leads to rioting and chaos. That takes human kindness, hard graft, and a sense of community to sort out. Still, it wouldn't have hurt him to end world hunger, would it? What are we doing here, Bruce? Number 2. Clash of the Titans. Like Jason and the Argonauts before it, Louis Leterrier's Clash of the Titans deals in Greek mythology, calling forth the gods that most of us know best from Disney's Hercules. Unlike Jason, though, it failed to bring any new technologies to the table, and died on the altar of the big 3D boom that arrived in the wake of Avatar. Perseus, the human-raised demigod son of Zeus, is drawn into a war between the gods and comes up against Hades, god of the underworld, who has a kraken and a desire for domination far beyond his dominion. With nothing to lose and a few weapons and tricks at his disposal, Perseus leads a quest to prevent Hades destroying Earth once and for all. It should go without saying that throughout the movie, Zeus intervenes from above, Hades intervenes liberally from below, but it's ultimately humanity that has the most resolve and wins the day. Huzzah! Number 1. Magnolia. Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia may be overshadowed by his headline-grabbing work like Boogie Boogie Nights, and more mainstream offerings like There Will Be Blood. But it's nevertheless the jewel in this director's crown, offering up a sprawling tale of modern life in the San Fernando Valley that manages scale and subtlety in unison. The film features a knot of narrative threads that spin tales of a police officer in love, an insecure ex-boy genius, and a pickup artist come motivational speaker, amongst many others. Their lives don't intersect so much as graze each other, often running parallel and only converging for the briefest moments of tension and release. As Magnolia builds to a truly unexpected crescendo, God sends a biblical rain of frogs in the film's final sequence, intervening in all of the ensemble cast's personal dramas and shifting the delicate balance of their relationships and fortunes. This miracle prevents a suicide, reconciles families, and saves an innocent man. And while the ending is bittersweet and far from conclusive, the very human nature of it all makes this the best intervention of all. And that's why it's number one, baby.